And this was when I was looking at Chinese manufacturers. And I think one of the biggest barriers for me, or two actually, was not understanding. I didn't come from a fashion school. That was the part, not understanding the supply chain. The second part was not understanding the factories' demand. What are their margins? What do they live off of? And I think that is an extremely crucial part to get, because I was thinking, let me order something, like 50 or 20 samples, and they all denied me. They were like, no, we're not going less than 5,000 back then. Is that what you're trying to change with this old way of legacy working?
Yeah, 100%. This is exactly what we're trying to change in the industry, where we call it minimum order quantity. Is that the minimum quantity you need to order to access that production capability. If the factory say to you, we're not going to do the product if you're not ordering 3,000 plus. So you just have two choices, right? So that is I guess if you talk about like one thing that we want to change right now is we want to lower the minimum order quantity so that more brands can actually order it in a sustainable way. They don't have to lock in order cash in the inventory. They know they're not going to sell, and it's go straight to landfill. Also for new designers, lowering the barrier for them to be able to launch to the market. So I would say that factories are thinking about the economy differently, which why when now we're pushing this, we have lots of advocates experimenting this together. Right. And we think there is way to make this economy work. And is one of the reasons we built Makia to be like the infrastructure. We aggregate small batch demand. We aggregate SME demand to relieve one of the pain point the factories now have is, these are super fragmented demand, and they don't have the account team. Like you said, most people don't understand how factory structure. Like most likely when you talk to factory, there's a person who is able to communicate with you. We call it an account manager, right? For this person to then have to manage 10 accounts to get a volume versus one account to get the volume, that's the coordination cost that's hidden. Right? We don't see it, but it's happening. And that's one of the reasons that many factories didn't like to work with small batch or small designers, just because of that. The other reason was exactly like the barrier we talked about. The first barrier we talked about is this manufacturing know-how gap. Because when factories receive requirements, of course, they want to know exactly how this product is made. They give you the quote, they can go into production line, all that. But in a reality, most of the order we receive are not like that, right? People, brands don't get to the perfect status of they understand how this exactly need to made in a physical product. And mostly they work with the factory during the sampling process to complete that specs. So I would say, I think lots of factories also think working with smaller brand emerging designer was challenging because of this gap, and because that gap also results in misunderstanding. And that could result in quality risk, when they finish the batch. And happens a lot that when the batch was finished, right, customer looked at it and they thought it was completely different from what I wanted to make. And the whole batch got cancelled and supplier don't get paid. So all this risk you're thinking about from a supplier point of view, they have to price it in, right? And to the extent they may reject it.
I can imagine for a small company, it's very costly if that happens. You have placed the order and you actually believe that this is going to go to market. And then you see it and it's all wrong because of miscommunication or something that you couldn't follow up during the process. And how is the factory or the manufacturing, the supply chain, how are they? Is there a discussion between them? Is this just putting the order out and hoping for my samples to be done? What's happening through that process that can go wrong?